Welcome to the Buffalo Sports Conversation Room. I'm your host, Jamie Malloy, and let's dive into Week 13 football. But first, I'd like to bring back on my co-host, Joe Dalio, who I missed from last week while I interviewed Del Reed in the afternoon while Joe was working. So everybody, please welcome back to the podcast, Mr. Joe Dalio. Hey, Joe, how's it going, man?
Hey, everybody. Hey, Jamie. Glad to be back here. I'm doing great. Hope you're doing well also.
I am. We missed you last week. I'm doing awesome. We had a great show last week. And as I mentioned backstage, I got to do a podcast with Del Reed, the co-founder of Bills Mafia. Got over 1,100 views on my Twitter account and also on Defiant Takes. So, yeah, it shows our show's growing, and I don't know if I'll be able to top that this week, but we'll give them a good show nonetheless.
That's right. The quality, will be here, and the quantity will take care of itself. I always say that. So I got to check out the show, and it was an excellent show. So, and as far as those viewers out there, we certainly very much appreciate you viewing the show here. And again, we'll give you something good today as well.
Yes, we do appreciate it, and you were very loyal for that last week, as it was a very special episode. But anyway, did you enjoy your bye week?
Yes, it was my bye week, and I did enjoy it, and coming back nice and fresh here and ready to go.
Just like I think how the Bills are going to become nice and fresh to make that playoff run, starting with Kansas City this week. So, are we ready to talk about the games, Joe? So
I am ready.
So now we're going to begin with Thursday Night Football brought to you by our friends on Amazon on Prime Video. Channeling my Chris Berman there with Prime. Anyway, the game was between the Seattle Seahawks on the road in Arlington at the Dallas Cowboys. Now, with the Cowboys only squeaking the game 41-35, Joe, do you still think they can be playoff contenders, as this was their first win against a team with a winning record all year long? Granted, only by 6 points, but a win's a win.
Yeah, the only thing that's going to be a problem for Dallas going forward is, if they don't win that division, they're going to have to play games on the road. And this team is a totally different team at home compared to on the road. I was doing a little digging earlier. I think the Cowboys have played 6 home games at this point, and their average score is 41-15. So that's domination. So the fact that Seattle, gave them a fight and kept the game close, I think is a compliment to them. But the Cowboys, they're one of the more dominant home teams I've seen in quite a while. Again, 41-50. I double checked it. I said, is that right? When I looked at the averages, and it is. So 41-15, that's a big margin, and they've destroyed teams there. Now, you said something there too, that, the quality of the teams that they've destroyed, might be a little lacking. But I think the Cowboys are an excellent team, and I think they can beat good teams. Again, I think a great test for them is going to be in a couple of weeks when they come right here to Orchard Park here. So that's going to be a big test for them. And as we kind of look into the crystal ball a little bit come playoffs, because the Cowboys obviously are going to be a playoff team. I don't think they'll be able to overtake Philadelphia for the division. But if they do, watch out for them, because if they play home playoff games and play the way they've played here, that's going to take them far. If the Cowboys don't get to play at home, it might be another short postseason for them.
I think they could beat Philly next week. And the reason why I believe that is because they saw what the 49ers did to them. You just ground, and that's what the Bills were doing most of the game, ground and pound. But with Dallas, it's basically, the good news is they're going to be going into that game with not 100% Jalen Hurts. You don't know if he's still going to be healthy after, even though he cleared concussion protocol, you don't know if he's still going to be 100% healthy starting off the game. So that's something to look at too. And it's
Right.
at home. And I think the Cowboys know that they should have won the game last time on the road against Philly. And I think they're going to do it at home, looking in a revenge factor.
I agree.
So, yeah, now moving on to Sunday's 1:00 game with the Texans breaking the Broncos' 5-game winning streak and winning 22-17. Joe, what do you think about Denver losing the game after beating us on Monday Night Football on the last second field goal with 12 players on the field? I still can't get over it.
Yeah, I try to block that out of my mind, honestly. But I give Denver credit. I mean, they've been great, but they've been playing great football lately. So is Houston. I honestly thought Denver would win this game, and I just kept waiting for them to make the comeback, and they didn't. And hats off to Houston for winning another good game here and another close game. Denver, I mean, they're definitely playing at the level we thought they would. When we talked about it in the beginning of the season, and they got off to that rough start. They've been beating quality teams, Kansas City, Buffalo, and I thought Houston would be another one. But again, they didn't get it done, and they're still in the playoff conversation, though. And, I wouldn't consider this a bad loss for the Broncos. I mean, losing at Houston, who's another potential playoff team, not a bad loss, and especially the way they played. They played a decent game. They gave themselves a chance to win, and they didn't. So it was a good game to watch. I watched mostly NFL Red Zone on Sunday, but this game showed up a lot. It was a good game, an exciting game. Both teams played well, two good teams. And again, hats off to Houston for, keeping their train rolling and making a playoff push themselves after last year's season. So kudos to them.
I bet you they're playing Aerosmith in the locker room. Train kept it rolling all night long, but I don't know
Right.
if D'Amico Ryans is really doing that, though. We'll see. I love D'Amico Ryans, by the way.
Yes.
He was a great hire for them the minute he got hired there.
And he's proving that every day.
Yeah, he already proved himself as a good defensive coordinator at the 49ers. He just needed to do it as a head coach, and I think he's doing it as a head coach in his first year.
Mm-hmm.
He reminds me of another McDermott type, culture, stay together, don't beat yourselves, things like that.
And he's changed the entire culture of that team, because you remember just a couple of years ago, that was like football hell. Nobody wanted to coach there. Nobody wanted to play there. And it's turned around in 2 seasons. And now it's exactly the opposite. Whether the Texans make the playoffs or not this year, they've definitely made great strides. And again, definitely you got to give the coaches there, especially the head coach, a lot of credit for, like you said, turning the entire culture around and making it a place where people want to play. And they got something good going there that is only at the beginning right now.
And you know what? This actually goes back to the Bills when they hired Sean McDermott in the first place. He was kind of the one that started this whole, okay, let's not hire older retread coaches. Let's hire these young coordinators that are about culture, family, and being disciplined and everything like that. And you're seeing that around the league. Like Kevin O'Connell's a young coach, same philosophy. McDermott, same philosophy. Robert Saleh, even though he's struggling, same philosophy, even though without a quarterback,
Yep. And there's 2 reasons you're saying that, because it works. That's it. And these people are proving that. And, that when people are successful with something, you see it trickle down. And that's what's happening around the league.
Yeah, it's basically not hiring retread coaches. Been there, done that, like the NFL used to do. But a lot of teams
Exactly.
got smart with that the last couple of years. And I give the league and teams credit for finally realizing that.
Exactly.
Now let's move on to my favorite game of the weekend, the 4:20 game with the San Francisco 49ers getting their revenge on last year's NFC title game as they throttled the Eagles 42-19. Joe, did you see that coming?
I didn't see it coming. I'm not surprised that the 49ers won that game, but I'm surprised with how dominating they were. I think, the Eagles left a lot on the field against Buffalo last week. and some guys are banged up, and I think it was the perfect storm. San Francisco starting to get things together. They had their losing streak, and now they're kind of rebounding from that, and getting back to that championship track that they were on before the losing streak. And again, I think the Eagles have had some close games. Again, they were lucky to get by, beating the Bills, and this was the perfect storm. I thought it would be close, though. I still thought the Eagles had a chance to win this game. I thought potentially they'd pull off another close miracle like they did against the Bills, but it wasn't to be. I mean, the 49ers dominated. I mean, are the 49ers that much better than the Eagles? I'm not so sure about that. I think they just caught the Eagles at the right time and stormed into Philadelphia and made a statement, yes. And don't be surprised if we see another meeting between these two teams later on in the season.
Right. I don't think it's so much that they're better, but I think it's the 49ers have a great game plan, like that you saw what the Bills did last week. You mix the balance of running and passing, and you just have long time consuming drives. And that's what the 49ers were able to do. And it led all the touchdowns, and who knows this better than Kyle Shanahan? His old man Mike used to do that too all the time, just pound the rock in the fourth quarter and wear out teams with these long 8 to 10 minute drives and put the game away. And you saw his son Kyle do the same thing with the 49ers with McCaffrey. So yeah, like father, like son, Shanahan knows how to do that. And the Bills are starting to do that too, ground and pound a little bit with James Cook and Latavius Murray.
Yes.
So that's what's cool about today's game. You can mix the air raid spread offense with old school ground and pound if you have that.
Yeah, it's a passing league now, but you still have to run the ball successfully. And we've talked about that with the Bills, and we'll talk about it later in the show as well. You still need to have that ground and pound, like you said, and the running game to balance out that passing game. And the best teams have that.
And it works because think about it, with the clock rules there, you're already killing time when you're passing the ball with a high octane offense, and running the ball with a high passing offense helps because you're killing even more clock to complement that. Like they always say, it's complementary football, and that's
right.
That's what the 49ers played there.
The good thing is you're keeping your opponent's good offense off the field. That's another big thing. You control the ball and you control the clock. You're not allowing your opponent to do the same thing. So,
and I was going to say, don't be surprised to see the Bills try to do that this week against Kansas City to keep Mahomes off the field, because that's how the Packers also beat Green Bay. They did the same thing. They ball controlled, mixed in ground and pound with passing. And that first drive where they got the touchdown, it was like a 7.5 minute drive, and then they held them to a field goal, and it was already 7-3 after the first quarter, and Kansas City didn't have that much time to try to come back. Green Bay dominated the time of possession that game against Kansas City.
Exactly.
So anyway, now let's turn our attention to another great game, the Sunday night game, which we've been waiting all day for, but even Taylor Swift couldn't help the Chiefs win this one. As Green Bay pulled out the win 27-19. So Joe, what did you think about this game? Did the Chiefs accidentally have a blank space and Taylor Swift just didn't write Travis Kelce's name for that game? I mean, what do you think?
Yeah, I think based on that performance, the Chiefs are in a little bit of trouble because something's not right. We were saying this about the Bills earlier in the season, right? Something just doesn't look right. Something's off, with Josh Allen. And I'm saying the same thing about Patrick Mahomes right now. Is he still one of the best quarterbacks in the league? Of course. All right. Is this team still a Super Bowl contender? Of course. But something doesn't seem right. Something's a little off. And I thought the Packers maybe would keep things close here and play a great game against the Chiefs. I didn't see them winning by as the margin that they did. So just, I don't know what it is. Just Patrick Mahomes does not have that same spark, that same confidence. I'm wondering if he's playing hurt a little bit. it's like, remember a few weeks ago when he was sick and the Chiefs suffered? It seems like he's still sick, even though he's not. Something is just not right there. Again, this team can wake up at any time, but I don't know. They seem a little more beatable these days. And certainly as a Bills fan, as somebody who's kind of sick of seeing the Chiefs win, I don't have a problem with that. But something's going on. And let's not forget what the Packers did, and they are slowly progressing the way we thought they would. And I was listening to something on the radio earlier in the week, and they said, you know what, even if the Packers don't make the playoffs this year, they've been successful. At the beginning of the season, if you're a Packers fan, if you're a Packers coach, player, basically your goal was to see progress with Jordan Love, see progress with a young team, and, take those steps to set themselves up for, bigger success, in the next few years. And I believe they're at a point where they've accomplished that. They've won some games, and now beating the Chiefs, I think that proves it. And not only that, but they're 6-6. And in the NFC, that's right in the middle of the playoff hunt. So I don't know if they will make the playoffs. In fact, I'm not so sure they will. But just putting themselves in the conversation and showing that they have really progressed and taken those strides that people in Green Bay were hoping that they would, I think definitely you have reason for optimism if you're a Packers fan, especially with a victory like that.
Could push Detroit later in the year and then maybe knock them out if they face them on the road in a road playoff upset, or challenge them for the division title next year. But let's actually not forget, this is crazy to think about, but even the Bears, look at the Bears at 4-8. They're showing that they're improving. I mean, they got a defense that's young and improving each week. And who knows, maybe if they keep Eberflus, they could be a 8 or 9 win team or a 7 win team in year 3. They could be improved as well. So that NFC North could be even tighter starting next year, potentially.
I agree. I hope the Bears do keep him, because I think he's a good coach, and I think he's worked well with that team. And, I think they will keep him. But definitely, I hope he gets to stay, and we get to see what they can do.
And I even think Justin Fields is starting to progress too. You can see it even at the game where he won against the Commanders, and then after he got hurt, they still did well with Tyson Bagent, but it seems like he's starting to get a grasp of the offense now there.
I agree.
Fields, which is good to see if they keep on. So, but anyway, now let's go to lastly, moving on to Monday Night Football, and the Bengals taking on the Jacksonville Jaguars, taking the game into overtime without Trevor Lawrence playing, as he left the game with an ankle injury. Evan McPherson kicked the game-winning field goal to bring the final score to 34-31 Cincinnati. Joe, what did you think of that overtime win, as the late Rick Jeanneret would say?
I was surprised. Something about Jacksonville, one of the only weaknesses they have is winning at home for some reason. They're under 500, I believe, at home. And I either undefeated or only one loss on the road. So I looked it up earlier, and I don't remember, but there's a big difference in their home and road records. And the road record is far superior to the home record. But, it was a very entertaining game. I didn't get to see a lot of it, but good quality play, give credit to the Bengals back up there, and leading his team to victory. And Bengals, hate to say it, they're not done yet. I think without Joe Burrow, they don't make the playoffs, but I could still see them. I think they'll end up 9-8, which in the AFC, that's not good enough to make the playoffs. But they certainly gave themselves a chance with a big victory like this, and you got to give them credit.
9-8 with Jake Browning, though, isn't bad. I mean, if you were a Bengals fan, I think you'd take that in a heartbeat. Obviously, you would want Joe Burrow here and making the playoffs again, but
No, I agree with that. If you're a Bengals fan, you still got to be happy that you're even in the conversation right now. And again, this is a big win and a great way to stay in the playoff race. And Jacksonville, we'll see how long Trevor Lawrence is out. What's the quarterback's name? Beathard, I think.
Yeah,
And
CJ Beathard. It was his first. It was actually his first action in the regular season as a member of the Jaguars, because Trevor Lawrence, what he have, like I think it was a 246 streak of 246 consecutive starts to 260 in that range or something.
uh-huh. Yeah, but I
He
mean,
was going Brett Favre, but younger.
yeah, he looked good. I mean, Beathard. So if Jacksonville has to be without Trevor Lawrence for a few weeks, I think they're in good hands. I mean, we'll see how he does, in a full game.
Mhm.
But I don't think there's need for panic for Jacksonville. I still think they'll end up winning their division, and they could be a factor in the AFC playoffs. If Trevor Lawrence is a part of that equation. But yeah, again, Jacksonville's just going to have to figure out how to win at home. I mean, they win better in their home, 5,000 miles away, or however far London is. That seems to be their home field that they always excel on. But the one in Florida, they can't seem to win there.
And you got to remember, Joe, the one in London against us, that was a game where we beat ourselves, and we still almost beat them. We only lost by 5 to them. So
right, I think the Bills were the home team in that game, but I consider Jacksonville to be the home team there.
See, this is the thing. Look, all these teams that we played that have these big records ahead of us. When we played them, it was only all the games we've lost have been by single digits. All 6 of our losses. That's what's funny. And all 6 of our wins have actually been blowouts. We haven't had, 5 of the wins have been blowouts, because the one was the Giants, but still.
They got lucky on that one. Yeah. But yeah, they're losing these close ones, which hurts. I mean, like we say, a win is a win sometimes, even when a team doesn't look good, but they get the job done. And unfortunately, it goes the other way too. A loss is a loss. No matter how good you look, no matter how well you played against good teams or not, a loss is a loss, and the Bills cannot afford any of those at this point. So
no, they cannot.
We'll talk about that in a little bit, but they close games, and yes, it should be admirable that they've played these teams tough, and and they do well in these games, or they look good, but you need wins right now.
And I totally think we could do it. Look at 2021.
Mm-hmm.
Nobody thought we could run the table after we lost to Tampa, and we did and got in. So
right.
That team could do it. This team reminds me of that 2021 team, except no Tremaine Edmonds, and better running game than that team. So
right.
So anyway, guess what, Joe? It is now that time for our question of the week segment.
Yeah, it's funny. I thought about that earlier. I said, we have no guest on, so that's going to rest on me. So I kind of mentally prepared myself here.
So, Joe, guess what? In another quote and another lyric by Taylor Swift, are you ready for it?
I am ready.
So you just got to take your time on this one, okay? Anyway, here's your question. Can you guess who this NFL quarterback is? As a rookie, he led the league in INTs, was the number 1 overall pick, and he threw for 5,000 plus yards in a season. Is it famous Jameis Winston, Sam I Am Bradford, Dan the Man Marino, or Peyton Manning?
All right. So I'm going to ask you now, again, I told you I'm prepared for this. You've been mentally preparing. So hopefully the good karma will reward me here. Can you repeat the question again? I didn't
Yes, I can. So can you guess who this NFL quarterback is? He led the league in INTs as a rookie.
Mm-hmm.
He was drafted number 1 overall by Bobby Beathard, who is CJ Beathard's grandson, by the way. I don't know if you knew that.
Nope.
They said it on ESPN, and he threw for 5,000 plus yards in the season. Is it famous Jameis Winston, Sam I Am Bradford, Dan the Man Marino, or Peyton Manning?
I am going to guess because I know Peyton Manning. Peyton Manning was like the Nolan Ryan of football, right? Nolan Ryan had all these strikeouts, but he walked just as many people, and I think Peyton Manning had a lot of passing yards, but he also had a lot of interceptions in the beginning as well. So I am going to go with Peyton Manning on that.
You got it. And guess what, Joe? I have another question for you.
Okay, let's see if I can
What
get two.
quarter? No, this one right now, because this has to do with this guy. I want you to
Oh,
get, because it's Peyton Manning.
okay.
What? Who did Jim Mora have at quarterback for the Colts during his famous playoffs rant when he this quarterback threw for 4 interceptions and 1 for a touchdown?
Was it Peyton?
Yes, it was Peyton Manning. People don't
Okay.
know that. A lot of people don't know that, but I did. When he
Okay.
did his playoffs rant, it was Peyton Manning, and that's how Peyton Manning actually turned out to. That's when he really started becoming who he was, though. Was that
Okay.
playoffs rant with Jim Mora?
That's interesting. I didn't know that. I didn't make that connection. Again, like I said, no, Peyton Manning, I call it the Nolan Ryan. He got his passing yards, but he put people on base, as well, just as many times with the interceptions. So
Yeah, because as a rookie, he was 3-13, and he had 28 touchdowns and 26 interceptions. I always remember that.
But even with those interceptions, I think everybody knew that was going to change. If it was somebody else, maybe not. But I think a lot of fans knew with Peyton Manning that wasn't going to be the norm with him, that eventually that would come under control. And I think we all know that that's exactly what happened.
I don't know at the time, though, Joe, because remember, they booed Peyton Manning because they wanted Ryan Leaf. And guess what? Ryan Leaf had a better rookie record than Peyton Manning did. Ryan Leaf was 5-11, and Peyton Manning was 3-13. And get this, Ryan Leaf was 2-0 in his first starts as a rookie.
Yeah, that I don't want to talk about that too much, and I'll tell you why. If there's any of my friends watching, I get razzed all the time because before the two started, and I shouldn't admit this with all the viewers that we're getting here. Past tense, I made a mistake. I said Ryan Leaf would end up being better than Peyton Manning. There we go.
A lot of people did, though.
We know that Joe Dalio doesn't know as much about football as he thought at the time. But yeah, so they give me a hard time still 20 plus years later, 25 years later, that I made that prediction. But yeah, I guess I'm not the only one out there that did, especially. And then after that first season too. But yeah, we all know who ended up with the better career there.
Yeah, because people remember, like I said, Ryan Leaf had the better rookie year, but not by that much. So
that's right.
Anyway, let's move on. Let's turn our attention to some burning questions. And no, who let the dogs out isn't the burning question.
Yeah.
No. The burning question that needs to be addressed during the Bills bye week is this. We're going to start out with, once the team comes back from the bye week, how do you think McDermott and the defense will prepare for their week 14 game against Kansas City? Because we've seen the last 2 games with Joe Brady that the offenses look good, but the defense hasn't complemented that. So how does the defense complement the offense this week? Should the offense have another great game for the 3rd straight game in a row?
Yeah, you know what? Past history says you trust anything Sean McDermott does after the bye. 6-0 as Bills coach at games after a bye. So I trust whatever he comes up with. He'll find ways to stop the Chiefs' offense. Now, this isn't necessarily reflected in the prediction that I'm going to have for the game in a little bit, but I still think the Bills are going to come up with an excellent game plan, both defensively and offensively. And again, Sean McDermott after a bye has proven himself. So I think we'll definitely see a prepared team. I think we'll see a determined team. I think we'll see a desperate team. And again, you can trust anything McDermott comes up with, because again, his record after the bye speaks for itself.
Exactly, but knock on wood though with that 6-0 because we're playing a team that could easily test that.
That's right.
But we're up for it, which is good. So with Allen playing well against Philly, how does Joe Brady keep his momentum and his bunch going for the Kansas City game? Joe, what do you think?
Well, keep doing what you're doing, first of all. And again, the Bills have had success against this team, in games that they've won and even in games that they've lost. And I think you need to go back to what you did to be successful against this team. That playoff game, the 13 seconds playoff game, I mean, the Bills were unstoppable on offense. And, what'd you do there? That's what you have to do in this game. Because I think the Chiefs' defense is a little bit better than it was at that time. What was that, 2 years ago?
Yeah.
So, it's not going to be as easy for sure. And again, that Chiefs defense playing pretty well. I mean, last week.
Well, look at our defense. They're not going to. You could argue the Chiefs are going up against a better Bills defense than they've seen.
And that's true. I think this is the best defense that the Bills have had, even with the players they have in there. Again, they're missing some of their best players on defense, but they're still playing amazingly on defense. So, it's to me, that's the key, is what's been successful against the Chiefs the last few times, because they play like every year, at least once. So something's worked every time. So let's stick to that and go with that game plan.
As they always say, if it ain't broke, don't fix it. But guess what I think? I think we're going to mix the run and the pass well. We're going to try to keep Mahomes off the field. And if we do get into another 13 seconds or a 2-minute situation, we're not going to go into prevent defense. We're going to come after him each time.
Yeah, and you just said something too that I left out is, I've shared many times on this show about the Bills' excellent record when they run for over 100 yards. They've only lost once when that's happened. I think they're 6-1 at this point now when they run for over 100. So they do need to make the run definitely a part of the offense. And again, for the reasons of keeping Mahomes off the field, for controlling the ball, controlling the clock, controlling the game, and balancing out the offense. And they're going to have to balance out both parts of it. Give Cook obviously is going to have a bulk of the carries, but let Josh Allen do some running, get Latavius Murray in there, and same with the pass. They've been very good about spreading the ball around. I mean, Diggs is your primary receiver, and you'd certainly want to get him involved and make him the primary target. But I like how this offense has been spreading the ball around, the last few weeks too, and they've been successful with that. Get the tight ends involved and, different receivers as well. Mm-hmm. So, with that balance, I think that's certainly one of the keys.
It's only going to be better when Dawson Knox comes back. But speaking of tight ends, did you hear the Bills are interested in signing Zach Ertz? Zach Ertz was let go by the Cardinals off of waivers.
I heard his name thrown around. I don't think it would be a bad idea. I'd love to have him on my team. He's a good guy, good character guy. Certainly wouldn't mind having him, but
be good for Kincaid's development.
I think it would. Like and certainly Kincaid's holding his own, and he's progressing excellently as the weeks have gone along. But certainly to have a guy like Ertz around wouldn't hurt this team. I'm sure they wouldn't have to give up a lot, if anything, for him. So.
We could run 13 personnel, one wide receiver, 3 tight ends under center. If he came in, we could do that probably with Joe Brady. So
I agree,
because that's what the Jets do with their quarterbacks. They run 13 personnel, one receiver and 3 tight ends spread out.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. So, but yeah, balance is the key on offense for sure.
Mm-hmm. But anyway, also with the running game going well, how does Joe Brady get Allen and Davis back on track to finding its open lanes again? And I want to say one thing. I think when they're done, I think they're going to make the Kansas City Chiefs some pork chops, and applesauce. Joe Brady, Peter Brady reference.
Yeah, there you go, Peter Brady.
Anyway, back to how do you do? I'll repeat the question. With the running game going well, how does Brady get Allen and Davis back on track to finding the open lanes again?
Just do what you've been doing. And again, like I said before, do what was successful the last few times you've played this team. Obviously the offensive line figures into that a lot, but just come up with game plans that are going to, allow these people to run successfully here. And easier said than done. It sounds simple, but again, like I said, find what was working before against the Chiefs and do it again. Because even though, like I said, the Chiefs defense is a little stronger maybe than it was a couple of years ago, I still think you can be successful against them.
Mm-hmm. And another Petey Brady reference there. That's swell.
That's
a swell take, Joe.
That's it. The Chiefs have been dominating for too long. I think it's time for change, so there we go. There's my Peter Brady reference.
Yep. Anyway, with a tough road ahead of the Bills to make the playoffs, having to pretty much win all their remaining games or winning 4 out of 5 at least. Joe, do you think that it's realistic to say the Bills have had a shot? And as we mentioned, they did it in 2021 after they lost to Brady and the Bucs, and I think they can do it again, but I want to know what you think.
Yeah, to say that they have a shot, absolutely. In the beginning of the season, I said the Bills were going to be 10-7. And I still think, even though there's a lot of competition there and I know there's tiebreakers involved, I still think the Bills will end this season 10-7. I honestly do. I think they're going to go 3-1 the rest of the way. They'll be 10-7. Whether that's good enough, again, we're going to have to wait until the end of the season to find out. But, to write the Bills off, I think is a big mistake. They're still in it. They've proven a couple of years ago that they can end well, that, when they put their minds to it, when they have their backs to the wall, that they can respond to that. And I think we're going to see that again with this team. The big question with the big crowd in the AFC, and again, those teams, but I'm going to say this too, and I wrote this in my notes, and I'm going to say it now. The Bills are fully capable of running the table and responding and getting their 10-7 or 11-6 record. And I think another thing that goes in their favor is those teams that are in the mix, I think, are fully capable of folding down the stretch. They're fully capable of continuing to play well and keeping the Bills out of the playoffs. But, let's look at teams like Pittsburgh. Let's look at teams like Cleveland. Again, good teams that have probably played over their heads at this point. And the law of averages could easily catch up with them. Now Kenny Pickett's out. We don't know for how long. We all, as Bills fans, love Mitch Trubisky, and, we like to see him do well. But, how's that going to have an effect on the Steelers? And again, I don't think the Steelers are a very good team. And the fact that they've come this far at this point, is I give them credit, but they could totally have the capability to fold down the stretch. And I think the same with the Browns. They're, Deshaun Watson is gone for the year. These quarterbacks that they've had play have held the team in there. And of course, Cleveland's defense has definitely held them in there, minus last week. But again, how long can that defense hold up? How long can these quarterbacks hold up? So the Browns totally have the potential to fade during the stretch. The Broncos do. They've gotten to themselves to 6-6. I'm not sold on the Colts. I don't think the Colts are a good team. And by the way, talking about the AFC South, who would have thought they would have the potential to have 3 playoff teams in the mix, right? We had Jacksonville winning that division by default, and not just us, but pretty much the entire NFL had Jacksonville winning that division by default, and nobody even being close. Actually, I had Tennessee winning that division, and they were the only ones that probably not in that conversation. But I would have never seen this coming in the beginning of the season, where you're potentially talking about 3 AFC South teams in the
Maybe
playoffs.
Tennessee next year, if Will Levis keeps developing the way he is. We could talk about that beginning of next year.
Yeah, certainly. And they've taken great strides there. But again, as well as Houston and the Colts have played, if you're trying to be optimistic as a Bills fan, is there the chance that those young teams can fade down the stretch? I totally think, there is that chance. So with the combination of the Bills, again, I say they win 3 out of their last 4. I say there's a good chance that some of these teams, the Bengals are in the mix, but I don't think they'll be there in the end either. I could see the Bengals going 9-8 to end the season.
Mm-hmm.
So, and we discussed that earlier.
Mm-hmm.
Again, there's the chance that Houston, the Colts, Denver, Pittsburgh and Cleveland stay there and keep winning games. There's, of course, that chance. But I think there's more of a chance that they fade. And I strongly believe in the Bills' chances here down the road. So, will the Bills make the playoffs? Again, the odds are still kind of stacked against them. But if you want to talk about them being in the mix and is there potential for the Bills to make the playoffs? I would say absolutely. I'm curious to hear your thoughts about that too. I'm pretty sure you would agree with me here, but
yeah, I do.
What do you think about their potential?
10-7, I think, actually gets in if these teams
Okay.
fade like you say they do. I think 10-7 will get them in. 3-1 could get them in. They don't have to run the table, maybe.
Right.
But anyway, speaking of who we said they would go 3-1, we actually have a comment from another podcast. This is the Back It Up Binge podcast. And they said, you got the Bills beating the Fins. And it looks like by their logo, they're a Dolphins podcast, actually. But hey, I think that's pretty cool, though. Thank you for coming on our show, though. Another a podcast of a division rival coming on this podcast. Thank you for the comment. We did not say who that one lost, so we didn't specifically say who they were going to beat during the stretch. We just said they would go 3-1. I think they can beat the Dolphins, but we'll see.
Yeah, we appreciate that comment. I was thinking too, now, if I want to give kudos to Dolphins fans here, the Dolphins might be in a position at that point where, they don't need that last game of the year, where maybe they've got the number 1 seed clinched, or, maybe they have a seed clinched and they rest some people. And that's one of the reasons I do see the Bills winning that game, but I think a lot of the reason for that is the fact that the Dolphins may have things set by then if they continue to play as well as they're playing now. And that might be the number 1 seed in the AFC. Who knows? But, that we'll see about that. But again, thank you so much for commenting here. And
I just got back with another comment. He said, Def a Fins fan. I had the Bills Fins splitting the series. Home team wins.
Okay.
That's a fair pick.
I agree with that too. Yeah.
They play the Ravens the week before, and he said that the Dolphins, he just got back, but.
Okay. Well, that could be for the number 1 seed right there.
Exactly. Anyway, let's move on. I think this is crazy though, but let's start out right here. Now that the Bills have finished up their bye week and are all caught up with other teams that they are chasing, let's hope that we can get some more help this week too, which we did, as 4 of the 5 teams that we needed to lose did lose, and plus we had our bye, so we're all caught up there. We're only a game behind these teams now.
That's right.
Even with the tiebreakers, we can still catch them, which is good. So, Joe, do you want to go first? Let's make our predictions for Sunday's game against Kansas City.
All right. So I got a good news, bad news situation here. So don't hate me, Bills fans. I think the Bills show up. I think both teams play extremely well. And my prediction is Chiefs 24, Bills 21. Now, again, before you shut this off, stay with us. Stay with me. I think that's the Bills' last loss of the regular season. And I think we were saying 3-1, Jamie. I think there's actually 5 games left, right?
Yeah.
So actually, Bills 4-1, they'd have to
4-1.
go. So I think the Bills lose a close game here, and they run the table the rest of the way to go 11 or to go 10-7. So this is, in my opinion, it's a loss for the Bills. They play well, like we said before. Sean McDermott coming out of the bye, they're going to be ready. They're going to show up. They're going to play hard. They're going to have an excellent game plan. I think they just, the one thing going against the Bills is the Chiefs are pissed off now. They just lost. They just got embarrassed on Monday Night Football. They didn't look good in that game against Green Bay. Perhaps they were looking ahead to this one. We didn't talk about that. So I think, again, the Chiefs are angry now, and they're going to be up for this game. They would have been up for it anyway, but now, especially after a bad loss like that, I think you got an angry Chiefs team that they're going against. Both teams play extremely well. Chiefs 24, Bills 21.
I'm going to agree with you on that, Joe. And I think the score, as you mentioned, it won't be a 38-35 game because the defenses are better.
Mm-hmm.
But I think it's going to be, I got Chiefs 27, Bills 24.
Okay. So, yeah, we both got them by like a field goal.
Mm-hmm. But both teams are going to be held to under 30 points. That's what I think we both agree on.
Yeah. And again, this is going to be a quality game. This is going to be a fun game to watch. And again, could the Bills win it? Of course they can. Things could go either way. But, we'll see. And
I do agree with you. I think they do run the table after that. We both said that as well.
Mm-hmm.
So, now, let's talk about something that I think is, I would have never thought this would have come up ever, because I don't think the Bills should have ever put themselves in this position. Mm-hmm. But some of the online sports websites are saying that Sean McDermott now should be fired. Joe, what are your thoughts on that? I don't think they should, if they make the playoffs. Mm-hmm. And honestly, even if they don't make the playoffs and they still finish 10-7, I wouldn't fire them, because they're only setting themselves up well for 2024, I think.
Yeah, it's a tough call. It really is. We talked culture before, and the culture that Sean McDermott has set up with this team is the best it's been in the Bills franchise. I don't think you can deny that. And what he's established here, the Bills have gone from a team where nobody wanted to come to Buffalo to play football. It was kind of, again, like we said before, like a football hell kind of thing, like Houston we described earlier. And now, look at what's happened in just a few years. People want to come here. Sanders last year, the wide receiver, said that. Mm-hmm. He's like, this was like my number one destination. He said, I really wanted to come here. And other people feel that way too. And the people that are here, certainly enjoy being part of the culture and being part of the city. And again, that I think, Sean McDermott more than anybody can be credited, for that, perhaps the general manager too. But so you got to give him credit for that and for turning this team and franchise around. As far as, I think a lot depends on what happens in the regular season. I say if this team makes the playoffs with the odds stacked against them, to me, that's a no-brainer. You keep McDermott around. If the Bills don't make the playoffs, it's a tough call. I mean, if they go 4-1 the rest of the season and just lose because of the numbers, again, then maybe we got a decision. If they go, 2-3 the rest of the season and kind of wave the white flag, then I think that is an indication that maybe, as good as he's done, it's time for a fresh voice and a fresh face here. So I see both sides of the argument, and I'm okay with both sides of the argument. I would love to see McDermott stay, but I have to be honest, especially if the season doesn't end well, I wouldn't be upset if he did go. We'll put it that way.
It's going to be hard to say, though. He's got him and Bean have an extension through 2027, but the only way that you would get rid of him is if they don't make the playoffs. But what you do is you don't bring in another retread. You either promote one of the, like Eric Washington, I would say,
Uh-huh.
to head coach, or promote Joe Brady like we did from offensive coordinator. I think you definitely keep it in house. You promote one of those guys and just keep what you have going, or you just hire an outside guy, but it's another young McDermott coordinator type, not a retread type. And I think the Pagulas know that now, that whoever they hire, it's going to always be a young coordinator type, after McDermott. That's what I think.
Yeah. What's your take? Should he stay or should he go?
I think stay.
Okay.
I think you should stay regardless, because he's just
Okay.
it's a lot. Even if they don't make it, I think he should stay, because a
Okay.
lot of this isn't his fault. It's just mentally beating yourself, and that's not the coach's fault when you mentally beat yourself.
Right. Yeah. The only argument that I've heard, which you can't deny, is just the amount of close games that the Bills have lost, and he's been criticized for being too conservative, and again prevent defenses and things like that. That's the one knock against him. Where again, like I said, I see the arguments. I'm not saying he should be fired at this point, but the biggest criticism is just his inability to win some of those big close games. So again, I mean, how much better somebody else would do in that situation remains to be seen. But I think we both agree that let's let this regular season play out. And I said that they should get rid of him if the Bills kind of wave the white flag. I don't see them doing that. I see this team is going to play hard right down to the bitter end for Sean McDermott, and I don't think that's going to be an issue. If the Bills don't make the playoffs, I think it's just going to be a numbers game. Obviously, they lost some games that they should have won earlier, but it's I don't see the Bills fading down the stretch. I really don't.
I don't either. And one thing McDermott has been able to do is, like, at least change the narrative that players want to play here. And I think
Yes.
they're still going to want to play here when he's gone. I still think he's done that, where the next guy we bring in, if we promote an assistant or we bring in another young coordinator, I still think guys are going to want to play here, especially we have the new stadium coming in as a parting gift as well.
Right. Exactly.
2026.
Exactly.
So at least we got that going. Those are good things there as well. So now, on a lighter note, the Bills have nominated left tackle Dion Dawkins for a second year in a row as their nominee for the Walter Payton Man of the Year award. What you may not already know, as he says on NBC's primetime games, is how he got his claimed phrase. It goes back to his day spent in New Jersey. And he was quoted here saying, "In the winter months, I would wait for it to be a potential snow day instead of a snow day." Dawkins told the students at East Community High School in mid-October, "I would wake up early and I would hit houses and knock on doors and shovel snow because it was my first way of making money as a kid. So the hustler mentality is there. That's how I became the snowman." So I guess we should call him Dawkins the Snowman, right?
Yeah.
Anyway, the players' only day off is Tuesdays, and Dawkins finds time to spend with them. He also has a foundation called Dion's Dreamers, which provides membership and support to young men and women in hardship. Dawkins believes that Buffalo embraces him and that he should give back to them in the community. So, Joe, would Dawkins be your nominee for the Walter Payton Man of the Year if it was up to you? Because you already know he's mine.
Yeah. Would he be my nominee as far as the Bills are concerned, or just as far as the NFL is concerned? I mean, because either one.
Bills.
Okay, yeah, definitely. I mean, there's a lot of Bills that do great things, but it seems like Dion Dawkins is always somewhere around the community. I mean, a couple of my daughters have met him on at least one occasion. He's just got that teddy bear mentality. That you know, that big kid mentality there, first of all, which I think people appreciate. And, I even, you just read some of the things that he does, and I'm sure he does far more than even that description would indicate. So, certainly I have no problem, and I'm totally in support, of that nomination. And, being biased, of course, being from Buffalo, I would love to see him, win it as on the whole, for the NFL. But yeah, I totally agree with that choice.
Me too. I just think he's just such a friendly guy, and he was always like that. And he was humble too. Like he
Mhm.
basically came from not nothing, but he didn't come from a lot when he played at Temple, which is a G5 school. And then he was a second round pick by the Bills, ended up becoming the Bills starter right away, and has turned into a great character guy and one of the best left tackles in the league too.
Yeah, one of the coolest things, I don't go to too many University of Buffalo football games, but I went to one in like 2019, and Temple was here playing the UB Bulls, and Dion Dawkins was on the Temple sideline just hanging out with some of the players there. So I thought that was pretty cool too.
That's awesome. So, just an FYI note for the week of Saturday, December 16th, NFL fans, the league officially announced that the Vikings and the Bengals will play at 1 o'clock p.m. Eastern time. The Steelers will be taking on the Colts. That'll start at 4:30 p.m. And the Broncos and the Lions finish up starting at 8:30. All three games will be on the NFL Network. Do not miss the opportunity to listen to Rich Eisen calls those games.
No, and those are going to all be very important games. All six of those teams. I mean, the Lions are the only one that pretty much, locked into the playoffs there. But I mean, those other teams. What'd you say, Minnesota and who's Minnesota, Cincinnati?
No, yeah, Minnesota, Cincinnati. I did. That's the
Uh,
first game they won.
I mean, that's an amazing game. And then the other one that you mentioned, Denver. Who'd you say, Denver, Pittsburgh?
No, Denver, Detroit.
Or Denver, Detroit, and then there was the other game,
Pittsburgh Colts. Pittsburgh and
Pittsburgh
Indy.
Colts. I mean, those are two teams that are going to be fighting for AFC playoff spots. So those are all huge games.
Exactly. Well, it looks like we are coming down to the end of our show, folks. So, Joe, tell us, where can we find you in this crazy social media world in 2023?
I'm on X Twitter, Joe Dell Sports. Not only Bill stuff there, but my take on the biggest snub in my 45 years of watching college football. I put a little something on there too. So all different sports. We won't get into that here, but to my friends who are watching that are big Florida State fans, I am sorry. Again, that's the biggest jip, the biggest snub that's ever happened. I've been watching college football since 1976, and nothing was worse than that decision. So you guys got screwed. But anyway, that and other takes of mine on Joe Dell Sports on Twitter.
Thank you for that, Joe. We appreciate that. And then, as always, you can find me, yours truly, at Bill's Chat 1, at Bill's Mafia Chat, and at Jamie Malloy, the unbiased journalist, at DJ Dog Tags on Twitter X. And also, you can find me at DefiantTakesFootball.com, where I write stories about the Bills, Syracuse football, and spring football. And I even just put out a really special article about Syracuse football, folks. So you want to read that one. And speaking of Syracuse football, man, are you kidding me with what they're doing with recruiting right now just by hiring Fran Brown? I mean, that's amazing.
That's good. Yeah, I want to read that article too. So
You
I will
should. It's
check it
already
out.
got 417 views on Twitter.
Also, I'll make it another one.
All right, there you go, Joe. Anyways, thank you very much for listening. And remember, folks, it was a perfect time for a bye week. 4 of the 5 teams lost for us, and even Taylor Swift couldn't help the Chiefs win this week. But one thing's for certain, to quote our friend, the great Chris Berman at ESPN, the original host of Primetime, NFL Primetime, in the fastest 3 minutes, and the biggest Bills Mafia fan, nobody circles the wagons like the Buffalo Bills. See you next time, folks.
All right. Good night, everybody.
To rock this place. Hey! Bye.